Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly live discussion around why Black Lives Matter. Our conversation this week is touching on the concept of tokenism as it appears in the workplace and the media, and just how it's been represented in stories being told to kind of help heal the narrative. So I think one of the things that we kind of just need to go into is a little bit of a definition of what tokenism is. So in essence, tokenism is creating the perception of an inclusive environment by placing strategically placed people of color in spots that highlight their presence, but it's not necessarily indicative of overall transformation in a business or maybe even a TV show or maybe even a movie. So it's kind of almost a smokescreen solution to a problem that's not actually being addressed. And similarly, what a token is just that. It's a token of something as opposed to it being a more prevalent way or a more representative group of people or diverse group of people that are representative of a working population in a country, for instance, or even in the workplace, a working population, but also just from I think we also, one of the things I've picked up is also just in your friendship circles. Sometimes you will have that that one person of color, and there's no general kind of inclusivity. So there's that one person, but if you look at the overall group, you might find that there's only one person. So I think it's kind of speaks to, is it about personal preference? Is it about what's prevalent in our society? Is there a narrative that we need to explore here and heal here? Yeah, so I don't know how you guys have experienced it. For me, one of the things that kind of stood out in my career was I did not want to be the poster boy for anything. I didn't want to be the poster boy for people of color in certain positions. I didn't want to be the poster boy for LGBTQ in certain positions. The fact of the matter is, I almost pushed against my own value in that space and started to feel almost like I wasn't deserving because I had the sense that I was placed there to create the impression of transformation. In hindsight, my skill placed me there. So, it kind of feeds imposter syndrome narrative. It feeds undeservingness narratives. It kind of feeds undervaluing yourself narratives in certain instances. But there may also be times where actually just feeds whatever trauma crap you're sitting with anyway, because you don't see that you are being advanced or progressed within a business because of your capability. You start to almost feel like it's just a numbers game. And I feel like in a corporate space where transformation is quite important, especially at managerial levels, because what I have found working in the HR space in South Africa is that transformation at non-managerial levels is much easier and it's much more prevalent. Whereas as the kind of progression of layers happens, the representation kind of diminishes. So those almost lower level roles are used to bolster numbers, but the real transformation isn't happening in the decision-making space. So I don't know how you guys have experienced it, what you feel about this topic, any insights that you may have into it. Let's just have a free-flowing conversation.
Thank you so much, Granville. Yeah, So it's interesting for me, like, so what the reason why I had originally brought this topic up was because one of my friends is in a show called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, and it's a really amazing show, really great. And you know, they touched upon this topic in their most recent episodes. And I remember when I was like watching it, they touched point on like multiple different parts around the workplace, like what you had mentioned of where, you know, Black employees were mainly treated as like, oh, we have an urban department, or like, oh, you know, we have this problem with the Black community, so we're going to send in our Black employee to help fix that or whatever. And when they had what resonated most with me and what I want to share is there's a part of the episode where they have like a town hall and they're meant to like share their experience, and they like say, like one of the guys says, oh, well, I grew up with this guy from Africa and he was Black and he was like my brother and blah blah blah. And it was like his way of like relating to the topic. And I find that like that I had to move through that a lot in being part of this group. And I realized like that in and of itself was like he was like utilizing this person as a way of like saying like, hey, I'm not racist because I'm friends with this one person, or hey, like I there's no way that like I'm part of the problem because of XYZ, right? And yeah, so just to like kind of speak to that on like the white person side of things, like it was how it kind of brought up for me like, how do I have like how do I like feel the feelings, well basically feel the feelings of that, and how do I have like a relationship with other Black employees, or you know, my Black brother and sisters basically, without like having that like utilizing that kind of language, so to speak.
Yeah, so I think you've touched on on quite an interesting thought process as well, in terms of where people say, you know, I can't possibly be racist because I'm friends with this person, or things like that. And for me, I found it play out not in necessarily people saying I can't be racist because I'm friends with this person or I'm connected with this person. It's more in those generalizations of some people are just this way because of the color of their skin or their culture or things like that. So yeah, that the narrative and the healing is probably quite extensive, and I suppose we kind of just need to almost hone in on where we are feeling this conversation led, so that we, if there's a series of conversation here, we rather do it in that way than to have too much of a diverse focus.
Yeah,
Because I don't
sure.
think
I
we kind
think
of get to the core of what we're trying to discuss.
right. I think what I was trying to share is just that like I realized myself that I have a bias that I didn't know that I had through looking at how tokenism has happened. Like I feel like the world in and of itself and like media and things like that has like showcased diversity, but then as I've like looked deeper at the core of things as this kind of topic has been revealed, I'm like, oh wow, like I didn't realize just how much of a bias like I've had, and how I've tried to cover that up just through like because of this one thing, right? And so I was just feeling the feelings that I think are the core of like what our society is doing right now, which is like using Black culture essentially as a token
Mm.
to say like, oh yeah, we're diverse, oh yeah, we're unified, but like, are we?
Yeah, the thing that you're highlighting, and that I've kind of experienced in my working career, was that people of color were generally just seen to be less capable, even though they weren't. So it kind of took a lot of work in terms of shifting the mindset of employing managers, because it wasn't just that we were looking to transform the workplace. We were looking to transform the workplace with capable people. But when the baseline is that those people are not capable in the first place, based on a bias, then you almost get the battle of having to convince somebody of the value of transformation, as opposed to actually focusing on transforming and the value of the candidates that you're bringing into the business. You first have to almost highlight and try and rebuff the theories that people sit with in the back of their heads.
I think the thing that comes to mind for me is there's like this thin line between creating a diverse workforce, so bringing on people of color, Black people into pretty much every environment, unless it's all Black, is pretty much predominantly white, and making that person or very few persons a token. And so we want companies and organizations to say, yes, let's bring on diversity, let's bring on racial diversity and make this all white space diverse, right? And no longer an all white space. But it borders the line when like you're only bringing on like one person or two people and like you're a staff of like 200. And so when that percentage of what makes up your entire organization is off, it leans more into the tokenism versus you're moving in you're moving in the motivation of diversity, because then those 1, 2, 3 people out of like 200 have to be like the representation, and that's just not fair. That's not compassionate on those people who are in there, who are there and kind of being the only ones. I know a lot of people, and I guess I could say too, you know, I've been the only in a room, right? Whether it's the only Black woman or the only Black person in a room, and it's just not a good feeling. It can be overwhelming. I remember this one time, I had just gotten this new position, and the position required me to like, you know, jig and jive with like people, right? And so my boss sent me to this event, which had like a lot of law firms that had a lot of money. They would donate to nonprofits. I work for a nonprofit. And basically my goal there was to like make friends, you know, let people know who we are, you know, all these different things. Literally, I go in there, I don't think I've ever seen so many white people in like one room, and then feel like I had like the pressure to like show up in that room. I literally, you know, I talked to like a couple people. Thank God this one girl, she was Black. She came and talked to me, and I was like, thank God for her. But I had to go in the bathroom, and I think I was like hyperventilating because it was just that overwhelming to me. And like, I had to like show up in this space, and I was just like, this space, I don't see anyone who looks like me in this space. Like, it was a lot. And so the goal is like, we do not create environments like that, right? Like that you're not one in a few, and that gets to be tokenism, and it's not helpful. But nor do I want companies to be like, well, what do you want us to do? I want you to hire a lot of Black people, you know, at one time, type of deal. And so not in like these small doses, if you will. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that as well. As you were talking, one of the things that was brought up for me in like even like a show, like I find that there's a lot of shows that have a predominantly white cast, and then you have like the one Black friend. and that's like their way of being like, hey, we added diversity in here. And a show that came up this year that I would have never watched, but I was so drawn to it because the cast is so diverse, was Bridgerton on Netflix. And it was one of the most watched shows on Netflix. And like, you literally have everything in that cast. And I love that people were drawn to it because I think they could feel that energy of unity, that energy of diversity, instead of what you would usually get out of a cast like that, or the times that that show was presenting is usually predominantly a white cast would be. But with this show, one of their main characters was Black. And that was huge. And you could just feel that energy. And to also relate to something that you were talking about with having to like be the only Black person in a room, I find that to be very true for myself. I know when I started in the corporation of Mary Kay and I started in my unit, I was the only Black girl in my unit, and it was like probably a solid 200 women there. And I remember just going into this room and thinking like, there's no way I'm the only Black woman here. But by seeing that, God had put a desire in my heart to, when I built my own personal team, that my desire was to have a team full of diversity, that I wasn't going to have a cookie cutter team or a team that looked just like Kanisha. Like, I wanted a team full of women that were all different shapes and sizes and colors. And I didn't care if they had tattoos and piercings. I didn't care. It was what they had to bring to the team, what they had to bring for themselves, the way that they showed up, and really helping them be their true divine selves and be their powerful selves. And so to be in a room where I was the only Black woman, instead of looking at it as like, I'm an outcast or I feel completely out of place here, I really had to go to that place of like, okay, God, what are you showing me here? And he was letting me know, like, you are the person who's going to bring that diversity here. You're the one who sees it. You're aware of it now. You're the one who can transform this area. You can change it. Do you want to? Are you going to? And that desire just kept building in me. And that's exactly what I do, is I now build a team full of women that look all different, but yet at the core, we all desire to love each other. We all desire to give love and share ourselves and express ourselves. And to be able to cultivate a safe place for them to do that is really powerful. And it really allows them to understand that they're not being seen because of the way they look on the outside. They're being seen because of their heart and what they have to bring to the table. And so really having to recognize that, like, if I'm the only person in the room feeling your feelings, so how does that make you feel to be the only person of color? And what is God showing you here in this place, really?
I actually saw something jokingly about tokenism. I don't know if you guys remember that TV show called Mad TV. Do you guys remember that? You guys remember? Okay, so there was this skit that was on there called it's called "Pretty White Kids with Problems." Pretty much, they were spoofing, you know, all those '90s TV shows about pretty much these teenagers pretty much having these hectic lives while they're in high school. Like Dawson's Creek and Party of Five. Yeah, they were spoofing those TV shows, and they made a tiny joke about how there's always one Black character in every one of these television shows, especially like Friends, where pretty much the entire cast was white, but they only had like one Black character in the show, Aisha Taylor, but she was only on there for about 45 seconds. Yeah, and another thing makes me think about, I don't know if you guys remember all these these movies from the late '90s, like 10 Things I Hate About You and She's All That. You know how they had only one Black character in the movies. Gabrielle Union was the character in both of them, and yeah, it makes me think about that. Like, wow, like I guess that was their way of claiming diversity in the movie or television show.
And the fact that they always ended up with the other Black person, the other only Black person, like if it was ever a romantic movie or something, They always ended up
Well, I was
with
going
the
to
other
say,
Black
because
person
he
too.
mentioned friends, and Gabrielle Union is Ross's girlfriend for a minute in time. So she's in all three of those movies. Like, she's in there.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So why do you think that is, that they desire to put the two Black people together as a couple?
I think because they're like, it's like pairing off. And I think at that period of time, I don't know if it so much happens nowadays.
Yeah,
but
that was
like,
the late 90s. That was
that
a
was late 90s. And
totally different time.
I think it was just because back in the 90s, it was still a sensitive topic of Black and white people being like together, like interracial marriages and things like that were just, it's like wasn't worth it. And so you just like have the Black girlfriend go off with the Black guy or whatever, and you know, what have you. And so like, to me, like it just feels still like you know, even to this day, I think that there is a lot more diversity. I definitely praise Netflix on having more diversity, and I'm happy you mentioned Outlander. But like, I just feel like, yeah, for me, like I've just like my whole world has been turned upside down of just like this kind of questioning of just being like, is that for the purpose of actual diversity, or are you doing that for like, what is the intention behind it? Right. And so like for me it's like understanding the intention behind like what's happening right now. And I'm not sure if anyone else has a deeper perspective as to what is happening right now. But like, for example, with the United States government, like I wonder if a lot of the things that are happening are based because of tokenism, or are they based because of diversity? And so like these are like questions that are kind of populating within my mind as to like, have we fully healed it and this is happening, or are we just trying to look like we've healed it? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you say that, there really is this feeling of like we are healing it. We are truly healing the diversity, because like people are the ones who vote, and a lot of people do desire. There's more people who desire diversity, I believe, than there are people who want separation, who want to keep in their culture. Especially because just where I live now, there are couples who are different races, and it's almost like I remember just going into my kids' class, and I was actually kind of surprised on whose kids, like who their parents were, because I was thinking like with my kid, like people would be thinking like, oh, his mom's white. Like walk in, you got a Black girl, and they're like, oh, but I see it. And same with other kids, like their parents walk in, and I could have this biased opinion that their parents are going to be a different color, but they're not, or they're just a different race, but they're beautiful together as one whole family. And I'm like, I love that. I love that there's so many diversities, that like there's people who are choosing to be with someone not based off of, I just put a post on it too, not based off their height, smile, their looks, but because of their maturity and their morals and their values. And that's what people are starting to get clear on, and what they truly desire at the core. They're starting to understand unconditional love, whether or not they're conscious of it or not. But as we do this healing, we're one consciousness, and it's coming to the surface for them. Like I said, whether or not it's conscious or not, it's coming to the surface. And I find that a lot more people are more open to getting to know someone who's from a different culture or a different background. There's more of wanting to understand. There's more of wanting to have open communication that is compassionate and gentle, instead of just being one-sided. And I think that as we have these conversations, and we choose to show up and be vulnerable as we have these conversations, it's really allowing that space to be cultivated for others to come in and share that, and share their part of themselves, and share how they feel about this, and really start to heal in that area.
Another thing I'll say, and this is for I guess the corporate world in the United States, a lot of corporations are now acknowledging Juneteenth Juneteenth is now a paid company holiday for a lot of different companies. Well, I don't know if all, but for the companies I know of, it's now a company holiday as well.
Name
What
me
is
one.
Juneteenth?
Yeah, name me one.
Juneteenth, yeah.
Now, what is it?
One company.
Say it again.
Name me one company.
Nike, McCann.
Nike, really?
You didn't know that?
I work for Nike.
I mean, it was all over the news when they were, during the rise of it. There were all these companies saying, "Oh, we're now having Juneteenth as a national company holiday. Everyone's gonna have off," and yeah. So it's now a company holiday.
Okay, what is Juneteenth? What is Juneteenth?
Juneteenth is, oh my God. Oh my God, Khalida, help me out. You know
Wait,
it.
you want to tag me in?
Yes, I'm chiming you in. Ding, ding, calling you in.
Juneteenth would be basically when the last slaves found out that the 13th Amendment was signed. So basically they were the last ones to find out that they were free. So I think it was June 19th. And it was signed January of that year. And so for 6 months they was free and they ain't know it. So, and this was out of some part of Texas. I forgot what city it is, where it's like recorded that those were the last slaves to find out that they're, because remember in those times, like, there were no cell phones, no internet, no TikTok broadcast of like this down. And so they were the last to find out. And so it's been documented as kind of the official emancipation, if you will, and the ending of slavery, Juneteenth, and like that celebration.
Oh, okay.
So it helps to, by having a company recognize it as a holiday and like give off, right? It helps people to have the conversation about the holiday, right? And so you get to have a conversation that, slavery happened, it ended, and where are we, kind of thing. And so
so I want to actually check in with you on this thing, because like for us, we've got like June the 16th, which is Youth Day, but the most of the people in our country see it as just a day off work. Mm-hmm. There's no real conversation stimulated around why this is a holiday. Why it's a public holiday, what is the symbolism of it, why is it so significant? So is that something that's actually happening, or is it just that, oh, it's a holiday, so like actually party time?
Yeah, I wonder. They're trying to make it a national, like a federal holiday, but it's almost like Martin Luther King Day. It's like, is this another day? Or are people going to be intentional about honoring Martin Luther King? And so for those companies that have coined it as a holiday, those are the questions that have to be asked. Like, are you being intentional with the time? Are you having an understanding of why this is the case?
And the reason why I ask you that kind of question, why I go into that space, is because that conversation is where the transformation happens. Like, right. Everybody can have a time off. That's fabulous. But what does the time off mean? What is the significance of it? What are we celebrating or mourning based on this day? And what does it mean for us as a people, as a country, as a society?
Yeah, what are we lamenting, really, in that moment? So I don't know, did you work for Nike or know somebody who worked for Nike? But yeah. Who else? So Nike, name me 3. Nike.
Target did it, but didn't let, like, they still were working, but they put up signs for us about
Who?
Target. Yeah, they, like, in the break room when I was working there, they put up like signs like telling us about what Juneteenth is, which I thought was cool. Like, I'm in Utah, so like there's not a lot of Black people here and a lot of more conservative people. So it was interesting like seeing that, because like that education really mattered. I don't think a lot of people knew about it before then, and that was cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Then, you know, one of the things that came up for me also was just around the fact, I mean, I remember we had a conversation about Google having this picture of what are professional Black hairstyles and stuff like that. And in the last 2 months, I've actually seen that Google is looking to employ a racial equity program manager. So, you know, that was quite an interesting shift for me, just to kind of, to see that they are starting to realize that something is necessary. It's kind of strange that it took them so long to realize that something is necessary, but they are nonetheless.
And speaking of Google, it's Nike, Google, JCPenney, Allstate, Best Buy, Spotify, Target, Tesla, Twitter, Square, and that's it. That's all I know.
Well, I have a friend that works at Best Buy, so I'm gonna check in.
Okay.
Accountability.
Remember, it's the corporate world, not. I don't think retail is in it. Are they in it? No, I don't think retail's in it. I think it's the corporate. Yeah.
Oh, so the corporate people have off.
Corporate people, yes.
Okay. Because they
Yeah,
obviously
we're still
can't shut down
working.
the whole retail situation.
Yeah, you can't shut down that on a holiday. No. No.
Well, that's an interesting conversation, right? All right. I'm always intrigued. This is going to take us left, so feel free to bring us back right after I say this. I'm always intrigued that Chick-fil-A, although, you know, they're not all the way, you know, great, closes on Sundays, and they still be making money. Like, and so what does it look like to just really be intentional about things, for sure? And you know, what does that mean? Because basically people in the retail, you know, they're the people who really need the day, you know what I mean? But, you know, all those aside.
I wanted to touch on something. You guys have talked about, like, is their intention just to like have the day off, or are they like having conversations about it? Like, what are they doing here? One of the things that I thought was really cool in my community is that we have a Juneteenth pageant, and it's for the high schooler girls who are juniors and seniors that are African American. They get to be in a pageant and like show off their skills in whatever way that they're doing their pageant. And the winner of the pageant gets a scholarship for college, for school. And what I thought was really cool is that a lot of the pageants that we hear in my local town are predominantly Caucasian. And I don't think we've ever had an African American win Miss Tri-Cities. Miss Tri-Cities has been here for a very long time. But for them to put on Miss Juneteenth and to see what it's done for the African community of those young girls has really brought in a lot of confidence for them. Really has seen that like they're seen as beautiful and they're seen as intelligent and they're just seen, which is really cool. And it's actually one of our biggest pageants. I think last year we had a little over 1,000 people show up for this pageant. And like I said, it really has encouraged the African American girls in my community to be excited to share themselves and to step on stage and to do something that usually they wouldn't feel comfortable doing when it's predominantly white females. And so to have that opportunity that Juneteenth has given them an opportunity to do something like this and to celebrate African American women, I thought was absolutely beautiful. And I love being a part of it because I offer doing their makeup for free for their pageants, which is really awesome. And so to be able to just interact with young African American women in my community is what Juneteenth has given me the opportunity to do. I don't think that without that pageant, I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to meet these women and to build a relationship with them and get to know them and allow them to get to know me too. So I just want to touch on like what my community is doing with Juneteenth instead of it just being like a day off or just another holiday. Like they do have an intention behind it and really wanting to showcase and just show that like our freedom as African American women is really a true gift, and we can express it the way that we desire to.
Oh, that's cool. You know, I like that there's a very specific intention behind it. But yeah, I do believe that with both you and Khalida just kind of speaking to the intention, it was just like perfect to refocus us on the conversation around actually what does tokenism feel like in those spaces. And I like that you mentioned Bridgerton, because when I watched it, I was like, there's an African queen on the throne. Like that feels really weird. like, you know, that was my first thought. I looked at this and I was like, what the hell's
That is
going on
exactly
here? Like it's a
why I
period
wanted to
piece.
watch it.
Yeah, you know, like I didn't actually, all I heard was the hype around the series, and I didn't actually know what the hell it was about. And then I started watching it, and the first thing I see is this African queen on the throne. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And one of the things that one of the character that's kind of struck me from one of the characters, I think it might have actually been the Duke once he gets his title, was like, we still have to show up. They gave it to us. How quickly will they take it away? So it still feeds that not trusting narrative of like, once you've arrived, it can still be taken away. Your place can still, almost the foundation can still fall out, kind of thing. And I think that's kind of part of the core healing of what needs to, that we kind of need to look into with the concept of tokenism, because again, it is that feeling of being an imposter and not belonging and not being valued, or the kind of the appearance of being valued, but you're not. You're just there for the image.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like the reason why he said it, because he says it towards the end too, he was like, the reason why we're here is because the queen married a white man. Yes. Or the king married a black woman, and that's why we're here. And that's why he feels that it could be taken from us, because in a sense, like, did we earn it? Is like the energy that he comes off from, like, is this really ours just because the king fell in love with a black woman and here we are? And really having to just claim your good, claim your truth, and understand that if it's given to you, that's what's in your reality. You can claim it instead of fearful that it's going to be taken from you.
Yeah, and you know, because I actually had this conversation with Kobe and Keely in one of my healing sessions, and it's just, you know, that energy of, do I belong in that space? And then I look at like my career building up to that point, and I'm like, well, it's kind of like I was being built for that role specifically. With every experience that I had, I was kind of being built for that role. And I feel like that's the core of some of the healing that needs to take place, is that more often than not, in the spaces that I have been, it's not because I was a certain color. It was more because I was actually on merit, deserving to be there.
Amen.
When you guys brought up Bridgerton, it makes me think about the whole, what's the word to use for this? The mind-blowing reaction when Harry and Meghan got married, because I remember people were really shocked that they were going to have that. They're referencing London, right? Which country is it? London, right?
Mm.
The city is London, and then United Kingdom.
Yes, people were really shocked that they were having a black. She's a princess, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
That's technically what
You're
she-
like, let me figure out the history right now. Yeah. She's got like royal status.
Yes, that she has a royal status in London, and it was just very unexpected and mind blowing for everyone, especially everyone in the U.S. because this is where she came from. And also, I don't know if did you guys see the wedding when it was premiered?
Yeah, I woke up in the crack of dawn and watched it.
Yes, people. It was just so amazing because like they had the choir that was there was all black, and pretty much the entire room was white, and everyone was just like, it was like.
Actually, it was a very diverse wedding. A lot of people were there. It was not all white.
Yes, but it was like the reaction of when the choir was going. It was like, wait, this isn't like it wasn't what they were used to, and I got it. But that was just a mind blowing reaction that makes me think about like, wow, we're having black royalty over here. It's crazy. It made me think about that.
Yeah, I binge watched The Crown, which is another really good series if you like British stuff or whatever.
I watched a little bit of that. Yeah, I fell asleep. It's not my cup of tea.
It's not. Well, I like it. I really like it. And then I watched Bridgerton afterwards, and so it's a stark difference because The Crown is all white, just because it's actually in reality of the royal family in that time. But there's this episode where in one of the seasons where they go to South Africa, and South Africa was still ruled by the British or what have you. And so Queen Elizabeth, really had a heart for like when apartheid was happening, and tried to use her status in the best way she could, even though the Prime Minister of UK or of London at that time, or Great Britain, was not amenable to it. And so it's just interesting to watch as well. I don't know what that has to do with tokenism, but we're having a conversation. Drake and Marley, have you all ever felt like tokenism?
For sure. Not like me personally, but I've seen it happening. And sorry if do you guys hear music in the background? Yeah, sorry about that. That's my roommate. But
it's not creating a significant interference, so don't worry about it.
Okay. But yeah, like I've seen it a lot in media. Like one movie that like came up while I was like feeling into this topic was Dear White People. Have you guys seen that at all? Yeah, like
the show or the movie?
I watched the movie, some of the show, but like mostly the movie I'm like thinking about, and that like I think does a really good job of showing white people like really what it feels like to be used that way, and that like opened my eyes to like that whole new perspective. So like I think that's a good example to like feel into that perspective, so white people can realize like and get really clear on their intentions when like with just interacting with Black people and loving them appropriately, not just like using them to prove a point, which is just like, it just reminded me of the same energy of slavery. It's like using and taking, and that's just like, bleh. So
yeah, so one of the things that just happened was our live stream actually just got dropped. And we believe it's indicative of quite a significant upset. And we figured out that the drop of the live stream happened as Kalita called on Marley and Drake to talk around what they may have experienced or have a sense of in terms of tokenism. So in resetting this connection, Ray mentioned that there is actually an upset that he's been holding on to or is aware of, and we'd like to invite Ray to share that upset with us.
Yeah, I think what like the upset is for the from the white perspective, and like this is like what I find really hard sometimes, is like feeling like I have to feeling the need to coddle the like Black brothers and sisters, because of like the fact of like being like, okay, well, I have to be really, really, really aware and present with these resumes, and like let's hire, like when Kalita was talking about hiring Black people and just like bringing in Black people or whatever, it was like, well, what the heck, like now the like somebody else can't get that job. And so there was all these feelings that I had around why can't it just be that like we just hire people, like and like just healing the bias aspect of it, which I know is present in there, but like yeah, it's like an upset of like feeling like, well, that companies have to hire that, so they would hire that over someone else.
Okay, so Ray, let's get very specific, and I don't know, Kanisha, were you gonna help Ray through this healing process here?
Yeah, I can. I mean, because as a Black person, I'd rather be hired because I am the one who's qualified for it, not because I'm Black.
Amen.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so intentionally, that is absolutely what I would want as well.
Right.
What I want to just go into is, Ray, can you state that succinctly in one sentence?
Yeah.
What is the upset?
I'm upset that I have to yield to someone else in order to not harm them or hurt them.
Okay, so step 1, step 2.
So I'm upset because I feel like I have to yield to myself in order to not hurt myself. Or change myself,
Is
maybe.
that true?
No.
So what do you need here to feel loved?
To accept myself as I am.
Do you have to change for anyone to feel comfortable or to feel like themselves?
No.
Are you responsible for anyone?
No.
Yeah, who's responsible for them?
God is.
Yeah, is there anything else coming up in this space?
Yeah, it's just like, I think it's like I'm mad at God for not like already having built a diverse world, like that, like we have to like it feels like we have to do things in order to make the world diverse. Even though like I know that's not true.
Yeah, is that the truth?
No.
I think God did really great at building a diverse world.
That's true, right? Because we're all different. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's just acceptance.
There you go.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense why like people aren't like accepting of like another based on how they look or whatever, because they don't accept themselves. Yeah.
We could choose to have compassion for them.
Yeah.
Is there anything else here in this space that's coming up for you?
No, it feels a lot better. Yeah.
So you feel complete here? Are you ready to come home?
Yeah. Thanks, Kanisha.
You're so welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So we will be seeing you again next week for another conversation around why Black Lives Matter. I feel like healing tokenism is probably going to be a continued topic next week, because we did get to a core healing piece that we probably need to explore a little bit further. And yes, the drop of the connection just indicative that there's quite a good piece of healing here. So thank you for joining us. Please feel free to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel, where you will find all our previous Why Black Lives Matter conversations have taken place. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.